good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex
and Joe.
And if you're a little bit perceptive, if you make your perception roll here, you may notice that we have a special guest star.
Yeah.
Who is it? And I have to say, in terms of an intro, over 10 years on YouTube at this point, I think is true. Nearly 80,000 subscribers.
More than 800 videos.
Yeah, over 800 videos, not counting a whole other channel, Questgivers, which we'll talk about here in a minute. One of the founders, I believe, or at least a moderator on the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook. You have an active Discord with over, I think, 360 members at this point. You have an active Patreon.
Very welcoming community, too.
Yeah, super awesome.
Yeah.
Active Patreon with all kinds of additional content. Over 950 posts at this point in your Patreon, which is amazing. You are the creator of the Easy D6 RPG system, which we can't wait to talk about. And by the way, I have heard recently that someone said it was more like the D&D movie than actual D&D itself, which is just amazing. You are a legendary DM, literally one of my top 3 favorites. You are the craft father himself. Ladies and gentlemen, gals, guys, non-binary pals, DM Scotty.
Oh, thanks, guys. That's wow. I don't know what to say.
Well, hey, man.
Is that me?
Yeah, it is you. Like you've done all that.
I guess I have.
You have,
Right?
yes, sir.
I've been around a while.
Oh man, you're amazing. We're so grateful that you would join us this morning.
Yes.
Oh, glad to, guys. Glad to.
So, welcome to the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex and Joe. And
Wonderful to have you.
our goal is,
Thank you.
yeah, our goal is to showcase you, man, and talk all about you, and for folks to kind of get to know you a little bit. So, I'm just going to kick it to Joe and let him talk about our tradition.
Yep. We do have a long-standing, read as short-standing at this point, long-standing tradition of first thing in, we've got to know the origin story. Every superhero's got an origin story. So we're going to turn those pages back to issue 1. Like, what's your origin story in this hobby, man? How did you get into all of this thing that we all like love so much?
Well, I'm an old fart, so it's a little bit of a long story. I think I got into it like a lot of old people. I played like the red box, kind of thing. And I grabbed the neighbor kids, forced them to play. But, what's interesting is even then when I did, I used miniatures. Like I bought, all the, I bought those lead, they were lead, that kind of pewter and plastic. But I bought a lot of them, all I could, as a kid. I actually had like a crude form of dungeon tiles that I used.
Wow.
Nothing like today, but that was kind of the genesis of it, really.
Right? Where
And
the tiles started.
yeah.
Awesome.
And we actually played on tiles, which is crazy when I think about it. It was like, so long ago. And then life happened. I got married, went to college, had kids, and that kind of fell away.
Mhm.
But I got into like war games quite a bit, like Warhammer war games.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I started building a lot of terrain. I was actually selling terrain on eBay at one point for some years. And then we had a recession and that crashed. And so I stopped doing that. But this was still before getting back into D&D. But as my kids grew up, I did play a little bit with them, but I didn't really use terrain. It was all theater of the mind. And they loved it, particularly my daughter, who still plays today and loves playing. So some years went by, and then I had some friends at work, and they were like, well, let's play some D&D, and so I actually got Castles and Crusades as the start, because I thought it'd be easy for the group.
Right.
So we started playing Castles and Crusades, and I was mostly doing Theater of the Mind, and I was like, well, this would, with my Warhammer experience and everything, with how cool terrain is, I was like, I'd really like to get back into visuals with the game, because some people it's easy for the Theater of the Mind, and other people it's not. Like they're visual. I'm a visual person, and I like to see what's happening. And so I thought, well, look, what can I do to like make it easy on myself? I've got a full-time job and all this other stuff, so I didn't want to have this big rigmarole, and I didn't really like the options that were out there. You could, do the stuff with plaster and cast it, and it's super heavy and messy. And what I came to found is I didn't like the walls, because, it's hard to reach in there. And still today, I don't use walls on my terrain. I don't use walls. I don't, when I play in a house, I put a tile down. I don't have the walls of the house, we just pretend the walls are there, and I'll maybe put a door or a couple windows or something, but I don't put the walls down. And then there are some other, there was another more expensive option, which I don't want to badmouth or anything, but they have the walls too, and I didn't want to deal with that. It's expensive. But how can I do this cheaply, right, and quickly? And that's when I hit on the cardboard. I was like, at work, we're throwing tons of boxes away every day. And I'm like, well, I could just cut this into essentially squares and rectangles, right? That's all it is. And I'm like, well, how about if I simulate the walls by putting strips of cardboard on the edge, right? So it looks like a wall, right? It gives you that feeling of wall, but it doesn't obstruct play, because when you're sitting, the difference between a war game and an RPG is when you're a war game, you're mostly standing the whole time, because you got all this tall terrain and you want to see, and you're moving all these forces and armies. And so you barely sit down, right? But in an RPG, you don't want to stand the whole time. You want to sit down, have your Cheetos and your pop in front of you. So I wanted to have it easy for everyone to see. And that's why I came up with a 2.5D walls, right? That was the first iteration of my terrain, right? So, and it was all just hot glued together. And at the very first, I was actually just using like spray that was like that stone texture spray. So I didn't even have to paint the stone on. I would just spray it, and I would be done. I would take the pieces, spray them, and be done. Basically, what I would do, I would flat black them first with spray paint, because it was cheaper. And then because the texture is really expensive, and then hit it. You don't have to hit it as hard because it's already black, right? You're not covering up the cardboard. You're just giving it that feeling of stone. Right. So I didn't have to. I saved a lot of stone texture that way. But still, it was kind of an expensive thing to do for some people. Even though the cardboard was cheap, the stone texture paint wasn't, right? So I started doing, actually painting the tiles, like and then I kind of advanced beyond that. By using stamps. Like I would make a stamp out of foam core, paint on it, stamp it on, and then you got a tile done. It's so easy and simple.
Love that method.
It's a great method. That method I still use today. And for the tiles, I just used a straight shape. I didn't put any walls on it, because then you have maximum replayability, right? You don't have to, you put a door here. That doesn't work now. Right. Now I can put a door here and a door here, or 4 doors to the room, or whatever. Right.
It's a corridor, mash them together. It's a huge room.
Exactly. Put them all together. Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
And I went through a couple of things. I was using like cork placemats to do those, to make bigger rooms, which works great.
I've done that.
And the cork has the texture, which is really cool. Right. So my newest iteration I hit on, which I'm using today, actually really works great. It's using paint. I don't know if you've seen those paint boards that you can get. They have canvas on them, but basically it's like a thick cardboard board.
Yeah.
Ooh, and they're not that expensive. So what I do is I take those, paint glue and black on them, right? So that makes them even sturdier. And then I stamp them out like I do my other Tilescape tiles.
That's brilliant. I never even would have thought to use like those canvas boards. I mean, it's like any craft store you can go in and go to the paint area.
And at the dollar store they have them now. Yeah, they have them at the dollar, and they're all different sizes. So you've got ready-made rooms, all different sizes.
It's brilliant.
Good.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it works great, and they're super sturdy.
Yeah.
But one
very
other thing I
durable.
discovered with them was this. The texture on the canvas boards is great for doing like distressing on the tiles. So drag a dry brush over like where there's separations in the stone and all that on the edges.
I'm tracking. It's awesome.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it looks great, and it's like so
man.
easy. Like it's so simply and easy. Like anybody could do it and make it look fantastic. I did one, and it went from looking good to like, wow, this is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Because you want your dungeons to be grimy,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
want them to
right.
be dirty and grimy for the most part,
Right.
and atmospheric. So
Right.
Right.
I started doing
Oh,
that.
Beautiful.
Now, another thing I've done, I've actually done recently was Alex played a game with me where
Oh yeah.
he went to the center of the earth. It was like a center of the earth pulp game. And I use these things called terrain modules, which are like plastic tubs,
Yes.
right? Which I would just take the roof off or the lid off the tub, and it's got all the terrain already inside the tub, right? So
Right.
you just set those down and you're done. Like I set 3 down. I had the mole machine that they took to the center of the earth. That was it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
I don't.
so easy.
I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to interrupt you, Scotty, but I mean, I don't know if you can tell that you've had an influence. You can see all those tubs back there. I don't.
Right.
I don't want to. That's what he's talking about, folks. I don't want to say you've had an influence on me, but you might have had some influence on me.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how I got to where I am today. It was just kind of an
videos
evolution.
on that channel or on your channel too that show that method. Sorry to jump in.
And and when I started doing it, I thought, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I've got to show somebody. I've got to show this. And like when I started doing it, like YouTube was kind of fledgling at that point. So I thought, I'll just set up a camera, talk into I didn't even voice over or anything. It was just set up the camera, do it, cut it, talk to the camera, really crude. I'm kind of embarrassed at my older videos, but I don't want to
they're
take them
genuine
down
as hell.
because it's like there's an evolution there, like
Yeah.
of where I started and where it is now. And so I feel that would kind of be, it doesn't work. It's not great for my numbers because I have all these videos that really no one watches anymore, because I've got so many videos. But it's like, occasionally I'll get somebody watch it and they'll be like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is great. Where have you been? Why have I not know about you?
Right.
So, those old videos still get watched. And
Yeah.
I just like that there's a record of like where I was 10 years ago and, where I am today. It's never been about numbers and stuff for me. It's always just been about, hey, this is a cool idea. I think
Right.
some people would like it. And so when I first posted it, it was like, I'll get a couple dozen subscribers or something like that. And it got to
Right.
100, and then it was 1,000. Then there was a forum, and then, it was just, and then, thousands. And now look at it. You can't even go to YouTube now without seeing a craft video for games,
Yeah.
Right.
which is amazing. I love that. I love that so many people have, done this. And there's everything from my ideal of the craft, from just taking junk and making something useful out of it, to like really expert crafters,
Right.
that I feel almost people just want to watch. They feel they can never attain that, but they want to watch it
right.
just because the stuff is
Right.
great.
It's so cool. Yeah.
It's so
Right.
cool, and for me, a lot of it, I wouldn't even ever use in my games. Like I'm not going to use a full cathedral or whatever in my games. I'm just going to throw down a couple tiles, right? And some
Right.
scatter
Want
terrain.
everybody to be able to see. Like some
Right.
of them are impressive. It's like,
Yeah, but it's
dang,
impressive.
That's like Weta workshop miniature detail. Like I'm not playing on that. What if I scratch it?
Or drop
And there's
it.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you
Oh,
want
yeah.
to play and build,
Right.
I have nothing. But I think it's great that there's a huge range. So those
yeah,
that are
yeah.
like me that don't want all that muss and fuss have the options, and then those who
Yep.
do have their own options too. Because some people really get into that, and and I say whatever's fun for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what you do.
And I think that's like a big thing that shows like keeping those earlier videos, like all those original ones, which are freaking great. Watched
Oh,
all
thank you.
of them.
I was so
But
embarrassed.
keeping those on there, like it shows that like genuine love for the craft and for the hobby and everything. And it's like, I'm not just here for a gimmick. Like, check this out. Years and years ago, like I'm still doing the same stuff. Like this is still, and it's a beautiful thing. Like I love it. I love it.
I mean, I've advanced in my techniques definitely,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's like,
Yep.
but it's like most of the stuff I make is still cheap.
Yeah.
It's still really cheap. You don't have to buy this and buy that. Like I said, the
Yep.
paint boards, you really you don't need much
So good.
to make those. They're super easy to make and cheap.
Well,
Yeah,
and I would say I think that's probably been a large part of your success, Scotty. That you're sort of like the everyman in terms of crafters. Like we all want to have something that we can easily and quickly get to the table using something that isn't going to cost us a lot of money, and that has a ton of appeal. I think it's still hard to beat those 2.5D tiles. Like I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I found out that like even hot glue will take paint, it was just like, like it was
Right?
so good.
I can paint that too.
Yeah, hot glue. Yeah, that was a mind explosion for me.
These tree roots.
Because you can make it so fast. You can make stuff so fast, and the texture you can do. That was the epiphany for me. I was like, wow, I can make all this texture with a hot glue gun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it's like almost immediate gratification.
Yeah.
Because it dries so fast, as long as you don't glue yourself to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not that I've ever done that.
Yeah, a lot of burns. a lot of burns.
I've got my share of burns over the course of the years, but
Well, hey, I have to ask on the rule side, on the gaming side, has it always been D&D and Warhammer and Castles and Crusades, or have you run the gamut?
I have run the gamut. I've played a lot of games. Savage Worlds is a good game. I've played Dungeon World. I've played all kinds of other RPGs. Cypher System. I love Cypher System. But when we talk later about Easy 6, those systems definitely, influenced me.
Yeah.
But then I had a very like with the crafting, I had a very specific idea I was going in mind, because I approached it not from, oh, here's a cool rule, how do I make a game around it? I approached it from, how do I play a game that is super easy to grasp and quick, but still has meat to it. It still has enough mechanical meat to it to make it interesting to players. So that's how I approached my game, essentially my game crafting.
That's
Nice.
awesome. That's so awesome. Well, hey, we've been watching you on YouTube forever now.
Yeah.
And I have to say, there are some videos that stand out. For example, the giant trees video.
Yes.
That has a ton of views. I think people
It
love
does.
that one. How about the dragon puzzle? Like, I don't think if you're a gamer and you trip through YouTube, like, I don't think you can beat that dragon puzzle video.
Right?
Like, it's everywhere.
It is.
I see those 3 little stones. And
Right?
then the DIY purple worm. Like, I think
yes.
everybody has replicated that purple worm all over the place.
That worm is glorious.
Yeah. Walk me through some of those and some of your inspiration for those and why you think maybe those have been such huge hits with folks.
Yeah, the trees, I think it's because trees seem really complex to make. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like the old style, and so people still do this, was just bend wire, which is really tedious, to do, bend it up and then, wrap it around, keep wrapping it around and do all these branches and stuff. And I don't, that takes a long time to do that. Plus, I don't like to, my theory of not obstructing the tabletop.
Right.
I didn't want a big canopy of tree gunk, to block the views. So if I just made tall stems or whatever, or tall trunks, then I wouldn't, you're getting the feel of a forest without having everything blocking you, right?
Yep.
And so taking all that canopy out and just doing kind of the trunk and a few branches coming off, works really well. Plus, since I use plastic plants for the branches, you can bump it and it's not like a wire thing where it's going to go flying, right? It's going to boing, and go flying across the room.
Yeah, right.
You can brush it, and every player brushes the terrain or knocks it or whatever. It's just going to happen. And especially when you have that kind of stuff that's vertical,
Yep.
and you can brush it no problem. It'll just flex, it'll bend.
Yeah.
So, those are the kinds of things I think about when I craft, not just making it look good, but how do I make it game good or whatever. Okay,
Right.
game well.
Yeah, accessible for folks, right?
Yes, yeah, and easy to play at the table. Everybody can see the table, easy to play, and the trees are super easy. They're just basically my technique of white glue with paper towels and hot glue bark. That's it.
Yep. So good.
And they're super
Perfect.
sturdy. They're super sturdy.
Yep. Well, hey, the other thing that's maybe sort of interesting to folks who might be watching us in the Runehammer community, you were a champion of the gridless play.
Yes.
Long before I think it ever became sort of popular with us in the Runehammer kind of cadre. Tell me about that. How did that sort of emerge for you? Because I think that's a bit of a departure from traditional D&D, right?
Yeah.
It was, and
I
particularly
love
at the time with 4E.
Yeah.
Because you think back, some people won't know this, but think back to the time of 4E when everything was measured in squares. Like
Right.
your spell had a square
Yes.
effect, and people would lose their minds when I had terrain that didn't have squares.
Right.
Right.
Now with 5E, it's like,
You're a madman.
okay, grid or grid not or whatever. They don't care because it's not encoded in the rules.
Right.
But it's like a grid is just a square is just an inch. That's all it is.
Right.
You can either measure literally with a measuring stick, or I just mostly
this.
guesstimate it.
Right.
Because I played so many war games, I could tell what 36 inches was or whatever.
Right.
And players pretty
Right
quickly
about
learn
here.
what that is.
Well, right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, right. From my standpoint, right, because you've used minis for a long time. The
Totally,
traditional mini base is about a square or close there too. So 5 mini spaces, right? And I find
you just go, Yeah.
right. I find that players quickly adjust to a gridless system. Maybe in the first minute or so, they might be asking, "Hey, can I make it that far?" And then almost after the first minute, everybody falls right in line. Oh yeah, it's about yay far, 5 or 6 inches.
Yeah.
And when the other major benefit I've always thought is when you take all those square lines out, all those it takes it a little bit more away from board game and more into the whoa, wait a minute, I can move around that corner, and that's still I'm not counting, okay, well, I barely made it to the corner on the grid. It's just I could just move here.
Yeah.
I could just move like that, and it locks in so much more just openness and creativity that it makes the players feel free. That
Just that small change makes a big difference. You are right.
Oh, huge.
It's that mindset of, okay, I'm looking at this like a board game. And when you take those out, now I'm looking at it like a miniature world that's happening that we're all jointly creating in front of us.
Yes.
As opposed to, here's a board game, I will move 6 spaces here.
Yes.
And there was another reason that was very practical, right? It's a pain in the ass to draw grids on everything.
Right.
Yes. So, with these tiles, I didn't want to draw a grid on every tile, right?
Right. Well, and it looks better.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, it looks better.
Right, it looks better.
And your point about immersion. For me, that really is sort of my polar star in just about every sort of game is what can I do as a DM to increase immersion? And I think, in terms of the terrain that you have crafted over the years, holy smokes, the immersion is just, takes off like a rocket.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And, and it's also presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, but it's something I really have thought about in recent years is presentation. Music.
Yeah.
Music really takes it to the next level. If you can pick the best music, I was running a retro sci-fi, and I had kind of this lounge room space songs that I got off the CD, and it was like with the theremin and all kinds, just great. And and people were just like, wow, that just really added so much to just that feeling of retro space, retro sci-fi. But it's the same with anything. Horror, have a creepy, have creepy music playing, and it just makes people more tense.
It really kind of puts that mood, it sets that tone and mood right off the bat. just as they're looking at, it definitely is that presentation.
Yeah.
And that really pulls into the immersion, like big
Oh
time.
yeah. And you say, oh, there's a goblin there, that just immediately takes you out of the immersion. Especially with like horror or other things that people haven't seen monsters before. Describe, even if you have a miniature, there's slobber is coming out, down their face, or rah, I like to startle the players, like jump up and make a loud noise or whatever.
But still, that's full into immersion.
Yeah. And I was running a
presentation.
This was a really weird game. It was a Terminator teddy bear in the future game. So the players were had gone to the future, and it was supposed to be utopia because every child was going to get their own AI teddy bear, right? And we were going to have a utopia because every child would be well adjusted and have their lifelong friend that would never die and all this kind of stuff. Well, it didn't work out that way. They were essentially Terminator teddy bears. And so it's like an apocalyptic landscape.
That's awesome.
And so as they get there and they're like, what? They're in Washington, and I, lay out some terrain, which is like all these ruined buildings and rubble and stuff. And they're like, and I have this arch, which is has this cracked head of a child on it because it was like World Child Day, and it was just like, they're like, what? And then they hear this little squeaky voice. It's like, hi, welcome. And then this little teddy bear comes out of the rubble and starts talking to them. So what I did was I reached down under the table and grabbed a teddy bear mask and put it on my face.
It's like the end of Screamers, right? Like when he actually makes it back and the teddy bear takes over.
That's awesome.
Man, so that kind of stuff goes a long way. It goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terminator and Teddy Ruxpin crossover. We all wanted.
And for the retro sci-fi, I gave everybody a phaser gun that would go pew, 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 pew. It was a little electronic phaser gun that would make noises. So when they were shooting, they could point, and just that kind of fun stuff just makes it memorable. Because I do a lot of one shots, and for me, for conventions, and for me, the presentation is just and terrain is part of that. Terrain is part of that presentation.
So good.
It's awesome. I'm sorry, I'm just geeking out over it.
Right, I know. It's so good. It's so good.
With all the terrain and everything there, is there we kind of talked about some the bigger ones, could be considered fan favorites just by the sheer number of people watching these. Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite?
Yeah, what's the one that really stayed with you?
Yeah. I'd probably say, we were talking about the purple worm. I'd probably say the purple worm. Because that was another epiphany on my part, making that purple worm and it coming out so well, because I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'll do it. I hadn't made one and knew if it was going to work. I was just like, I'm going to try this and see if it works. Right. And it came out great. And I was like, oh,
so good.
Well, yeah, this is cool. Because I like those kind of monsters for people to make because they're easy, right? Because we all know the human form, and it's very hard for a non-artist to sculpt a human form that looks good, right? The arms got to be the perfect length, and legs got to be perfect length. It's got to be perfectly proportioned. But if you make a monster, the more you start moving away from the humanoid form, the easier it gets to make a monster, right? An ogre is easier because it has long arms and it's distorted face, and if you mess up, it doesn't matter because it's an ogre, right? Yep. It doesn't have to be perfect. But once you start getting to the aberration monsters and totally just off the wall like a purple worm, you can make it, as long as it doesn't look like mine and vaguely looks like a worm, you've done it. You've done good,
Right. Right. The strictures are less with the monsters.
Yeah. So I love those kind of monsters. Those are easy to make, I think, for most people, because you don't have that, it's got to look perfect like a person.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. I do love that worm. I have not yet made one, but I have watched that video. We'll just call it more than once.
So many people have made it.
Right.
So many people have made it. I think I even have a video showcasing people who have made it at some point. That made their own purple worms. And there's all these kind of variations. There's graboid variations and, from
so
Tremors.
Great.
And all kinds of cool, variations. Actually, a game I'm getting ready to run, I made some new purple worms because I wanted them to be like sand colored and not more like
Yep.
dunes
Mhm.
waste colored as opposed to purple worms. So, but essentially it's the purple worm. It's
Love
very
it.
close.
Love it.
Right. I heard a plural in that. I heard made my purple
Yeah,
worms.
yeah. There's more than one. Like,
I heard more than
We're gonna need more than one thumper.
Gonna need a bigger boat.
Don't walk in rhythm. Don't
Yeah.
walk in rhythm.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, hey, Scotty. So, we've talked a little bit, like we've talked all around the DM's craft and kind of how you got started with that. But you also have partnered up with DMG Info, and you have another channel and another venture, the Questgivers. So tell us a little bit about the Questgivers and how that sort of started.
Yeah, Gareth and I have been friends for a long time. Almost, soon after the DM's craft started. So, but he lives in Australia.
yep.
Right.
So, but through our talks, we came to find that we were very similar in our ideas of how to run a game, like how to make a good game. And so we thought, well, let's start a channel talking about stuff that makes a good game, and let's make it system agnostic. So it's like you don't have to play D&D. Oh, here's the things you do to make D&D better, or the things you do to make
Right.
Cypher system better, or Castles and Crusades or whatever. These will apply to any game. You do these, basically they'll make your game better. So we wanted to do that. And we also wanted to do modules with people in the community, which we have actually some in the pipe right now, more in the pipe.
Nice.
But we actually did a successful Kickstarter, which was our North Road campaign. And I have the book right here if it
So
that's
that's the
the-
PDF.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
the great thing about being system neutral is all this 400 some pages is content.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, this much is like, background, and this much is
Right.
like, monsters, and then this much is rules. It's like, and then you actually have this much adventure.
Yeah. Right.
This whole thing is adventure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this whole
the
thing is a
whole thing's
campaign,
usable.
So good.
and it's usable for any system, like straight, out of this book.
Yep.
So
I
that's what
can
we
definitely-
wanted.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
That's what we wanted. So, I'm very pleased with it. People have loved it. I've run it several times, and it's just been a success every time. I've run it with EZD6, and great, just perfect with EZD6.
Yes.
I'm actually in the works of making stats for EZD6 for everything in the book.
That's
For
cool.
use with it,
that's great.
which I'll
That's
have
great.
come out.
Cool.
So you can actually get that and be like, oh, if you want to run it, because there's no stats in the book. So if you want to run it with EZD6, it's just easier for you to have the have the stats right on hand. Or I call them listings. I call them listings because there's not really any stats, right? It's just a listing of what the monster does, basically.
So great.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say, those two things really part of the genius. Both the channel in terms of the DM advice, between the two of you, tons of experience. It's outstanding. And for folks who are listening or watching, I would just say, please go check out the Questgivers channel. It's amazing. And then also in terms of the products and making them, again, accessible in terms of the awesome content. Like, please go check those out, folks. Like, let me break the fourth wall here. Please go check those out and support Scotty and Gareth, because it really is outstanding stuff that you can run with any system.
With any system. Like I could actually talk about that too. So before it became the print on demand, the collected volume. Sadly, I don't have the print yet, but it will be coming. But I've got all of the Questgiver stuff, loaded up. All the complete North Road. This was back when it was 4 chapters.
All right.
Plus the 2 like one shot, like the side quests, Arcane Vault and Blood Moon Temple. Like, and we started playing through them. We were using ICRPG. Sadly, we only got
use.
Yeah, I mean, it fit great. Like, and it worked wonderfully, especially with the way that it is system agnostic. Like, you can literally plug it into anything. But we got through Death and Taxes. We were playing through that, and my brother was part of that group, as well as a buddy of ours, Kevin, from sadly, because of life stuff for both of them, like our group kind of like dissolved, which was a shame. But I can honestly say that first road, that first adventure, like it took us all by surprise because
So
we kind of
good.
went in thinking one thing because we're starting on the docks. We just got off a boat. We're like, ooh, we're pirates. You know, let's go in with like a pirate attitude. And that very
Right.
quickly turned into the wrong idea. But I mean,
Right.
the characters, the way the NPCs are written, they're fluid, they're easy to use. Those roll tables are amazing. Like you can even like, you know, if you're going DIY, you can farm stuff out of all of these. I've read through all of them. Like they are nonstop packed full of content.
It's so good.
Oh yeah, that was the whole intention. Make this
yeah,
as user friendly and full of content,
yes.
because although world books are pretty cool,
Mm-hmm.
they leave me hanging because it's like, okay, you got all this information, now what do you do with it? Right? I would rather you give me a bunch of quests with
Yes.
the world included
Yes.
than like, oh, here's a world book, now here you're on your own, go make your own stuff.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right. Don't just give me the map. Give me the map with like some things marked out to go and see. Like,
And you know
imagine how
what?
boring
Players are never
Disneyland
going to
would
know
be.
like 80 to 90% of that stuff anyway.
Right. They
Yeah,
don't care.
exactly.
You're going to learn, you're going to take a college course in this world, right?
Lore
Essentially.
dump. Yep.
Yeah, lore
Right.
dump. And unless you do lore dumps, which is boring as hell to the players,
Yeah.
they're not going to know. They're only going to care and know about what is happening right now.
Yep. Right.
And
now
most of the
in their
time, that
space.
only touches a few aspects of the setting.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's my philosophy. It's my philosophy
These
for
present
sure.
it wonderfully. Because like honestly, like you could play through these over and over and over and still not find all of those options or see all of those options. Like
Yep.
in these books. Like
Well-
they're so much reusability, so much playability.
And I have to showcase for a minute, Joe, the Weirdly Strange Night of Terror game. Because that's one that, Scotty, you have personally run for me, and old Brandish, old Hanker and Furnail. We were in it together. That adventure is so good. It starts in a diner. I don't want to give any more away from that. I'll let you if you want to, Scotty.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit more away.
It's so good. It's so good.
So you're outside of this little town in New Mexico called Limbo, right? And you're in this rundown diner, and all the characters start in this diner. And what I do is I give each character their own background. So you pick a pre-gen character, and this is all easy D6, and you pick a pre-gen character, and you get a background and like a little thing that your character can do with the character, which is a little advantage in easy D6.
And a secret.
Yeah, but it's all secret. Nobody knows why anybody else is here, and it might be something
That's awesome.
innocuous, or it might be something like weird or whatever.
Yes.
Or nefarious, actually. So it's just fun to see what and everybody does it different, of course, and so it's fun to see what happens. And so basically they're in this diner. I'll kind of give you a little bit here. So the players are just sitting there and they all introduce their characters, and then there's kind of this like this old greasy spoon. There's this the cook, this old guy and a wife beater, and the waitress is just this gum chewing older woman. And so this fog of green mist starts to come in, and this black SUV screeches into the parking lot, and the guy in a guy in a black suit jumps out with a briefcase, runs for the door, and before he can make it, this person comes and like tackles him and is on top of him and all feral, and he's like, and so then it's like, okay, what do you do?
Yep.
So it's like right then it starts you on the, like you're on the roller coaster, hopefully uphill, not downhill, but so you're just on this roller coaster ride immediately. Like it's almost immediate. You jumped out of the gate, and then it's like every minute something's hitting the fan. Something here is hitting the fan. And then it's got aliens and zombies. So I mean, how much cooler can you get?
It's so great.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Well, and when you ran that for us, you ran it originally in ICRPG. Obviously,
Yes.
I would encourage people, run it whatever system you enjoy, but ICRPG, I think, lends itself well. Easy D6, of course, which we're going to talk about. But I am curious, because that was sort of part of, your involvement with ICRPG back in the day. How did you get involved with ICRPG and Runehammer Games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is how you and I met.
Yeah, it is. Hank started doing videos, his room videos and doing terrain. And he had some very interesting terrain. He's just fun to watch. He has a
Yeah.
great personality.
Yeah.
And I call him the mad genius.
Yep. He is.
Because he is a genius. I mean, there's no
question.
I'm a little smart, but he's a freaking genius. So I have my moments where I'm smart, but
right, me too. But
he's like inspired like 24/7. So anyways, he saw me do what I did, and so it encouraged him to do what he did. And so he was, I knew that. And so we always kind of encourage each other. And I even did kind of a joke video about him. It was like castles and coffee or something, where I was like being really, like reserved. And so, now we take the dungeon here, so it was a dumb, way years back. But I always encouraged him. I love what he did. And then when he came with ICRPG, I'm like, this is genius, because he's kind of did what I wanted to do with my game, which is distill the game down into an easier way to play, right? Without all the muss and fuss, but still make it workable, And so, but he took as the core kind of the D&D core, which is great because almost everyone knows D&D, right? So when you pull it out, it's not that hard to explain ICRPG, right? One thing that I kind of diverted from Hank on was it's pretty deadly. Like, I don't want you to die like in the first encounter when I go to a convention, right?
Right.
And you could easily die with just a couple bad luck rolls or one bad luck roll.
That definitely happens at the end in your games.
Yes, yeah.
The difficulty spike is way up, but yes, at the beginning.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about you as a DM and your philosophy is you want players to have success and have that fun.
I freaking love the players. I hate killing players, except in survival horror. I love killing players. I'm like murder, death, kill here. If you give me any chance, I would kill you. But in normal games, I'm a total opposite. I hate killing players.
Yeah.
But so what I was getting at was with ICRPG, that's where I came up with my luck die system, which transferred to EZD6, and which actually Professor Dungeon Master uses it in a form. It's his game, the new game he came out with. So with the luck dice, added longevity to your character. And people love that rule. It was funny, and they were like, well, I bought ICRPG and it didn't have that rule in it. It's like, well, that's my own rule. I made it up.
Right.
So then I started selling it on Questgivers because people loved it so much.
So good.
And Professor Dungeon Master was like, oh, this is a great rule. So he was like pitching it for me too, because he loved it too. And it's great. It's great so you don't die so quick. You have options. Eventually, you're going to run out of luck, right? You run out of luck at some point, but at least you don't die immediately. And it still gives you that interesting chance. It's like, or that interesting decision, which I love in games. Do I want to use this now and succeed at this, what I'm going to do? Because I have the means right here in front of me, right? But then when I use this resource up, I may not have it to protect me when it hits the fan.
Yep.
So do I want to do this task, or do I want to save it to save my butt?
Right.
When I need to save my butt.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I love that decision. I love that decision. And it puts it in your hands. It puts the decision in your hands, not the game's. Right?
Yep.
So I love that. But like I say, eventually you're going to run out of luck.
Yeah. Alex can attest that's usually when we're playing and he's running, it's usually like the first room, the first encounter space. I'm like, we're burning through all of these.
Right.
Every single game.
It's sort of a running joke, Scotty. Like, if we have any sort of expendable like that you could burn to save your butt, Joe goes through them in the first 2 minutes. Like,
it's very easy to do because I could fail, which sucks, or I could succeed. But one thing I did, because failure sucks, is you get rewarded a luck die when you fail,
Yep.
right?
Correct. Yep.
Which is great, because that takes the sting away of failure. Because it sucks to fail a roll. Nobody likes to fail a roll. But if you get something for it, it's like, oh, I have this luck I can bank for later, right?
That's it. Well,
and sometimes people will decide whether they want to fail or not. Like, I have the means to not fail, probably, but maybe I should just let it fail to get another one,
Yep.
So I love that kind of decision making.
Well, and I would also point out it's also baked into the karma system in Easy D6 as well.
Yes, this system got totally baked in.
Yeah, which is
into
great.
my own game.
Yeah, so great. Well, I think that's a good transition, right? So, for folks who don't know what we're talking about, this is Easy D6. And by the way, this is like the coolest book ever. This is Scotty's.
Thank you.
This is Scotty's own system that he's come out with, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm going to let you talk about it and showcase it because it's so good.
Well, thank you.
We have heard like a little bit about like the inspiration leading into it, but like now we want to we want the marrow out of the bone.
Give us the
all
the juicy deets here.
I think people know that I've tested it for like several years and everything. But I talked a little bit about earlier why I wanted to do my own system. Not because I came up with some cool rule, you roll 2d20 and then you choose whatever. It's just like, okay, how can I boil a game down to just the basics, like just enough to play the game with enough meat on it that it's not, there's some wiggle, right? So the easiest way to play a game is to take a coin, heads you succeed, tails you fail, right? You flip it. Yeah. That's the easiest way to play a game, right?
Yep.
But I wanted a little more room there, right? So the D6 gives you more room. But one thing with D&D is it also, with the D20 is, it also makes it easier to decide how hard something is, right? Because 1 always fails and 6 always succeeds. So if you know that, right, it's easy for me to pick a difficulty between 2 and 6, right?
Really easy.
Whereas D20, it's like, is it 13 or 14? Is it, maybe it should be 15 or 16? Right. That's a lot more room to pick. But for me, it's just bam, it's so easy to pick a number because 4 is a little bit harder than 3. Yeah, it should be a 4 this time, or 5. This is pretty hard. It should be a 5 or even a 6.
And that's almost like an easier scale to just run.
Exactly.
When you really stop and think about it, what's the real difference between a 13 and a 14? It's more innocuous, but like
right.
on a D6,
of course, if you roll that 13 and you use a 14,
that means a whole lot.
There's a big difference.
It means a whole lot. That's true. But I mean, that scalability, because like a 4 to a 5 on a D6, like it's like a solid punch.
Exactly, and it's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the same thing. Needing a 4 or needing a 10 on a D20. It's the exact same thing. Or 11, you could say 11, 12, 13, right? It's the exact same thing. So, but it's just easier to imagine, I think. I call the game master the rabble rouser.
Yep.
And the players pusher and shovers.
Yep.
Because they're pushing and shoving to get to their goal, right? That's what they do. Some people love the names. Other people are like, why did you just call it Game Master or whatever? You can call it Game Master. You can play the game and call it. You don't have to call it Rabble Rouser. But I just thought Rabble Rouser was fun. So.
Well, it's evocative. It's so great.
It is. Well, yeah.
I was just gonna say, you touched on something interesting, by the way. This whole concept of pushing and shoving. One of the things that I highlight a lot is dramatic tension in games, and the fact that players have to struggle. And if they don't struggle, if they're cutting down 100 goblins in one hit, it's not a very interesting sort of adventure or character to me. Success is way too easy. In all of the fiction we consume, in all of the drama going back from time immemorial, players have to struggle, or characters struggle, and that's what makes us enjoy them, and that's what makes them interesting.
Yeah. Heroes need peril.
They need peril. That's my personal philosophy. And I can tell, Scotty, you are a consummate storyteller in terms of your hooks, in terms of your focus on plot, in terms of your GM advice. Talk to us a little bit about that. And if you sort of subscribe to that same philosophy.
Oh, totally. If the players, there's a difference between playing a story, and playing a story where the players don't have choices. They have to make,
Right.
or they don't have a choice in this. They have to do it. Right.
Right.
Of course, if they don't go to the adventure, then we don't have an adventure and the night's over. Right.
Right.
So you could say, oh, that's railroading. But if you make it evocative enough that the players want to do that, there may always be this contrary player that doesn't want to do that, but that's pretty rare. But anyways, most people want to get into the adventure, but it's really not about that so much as allowing them to make choices within that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. That's what you want. So you still have the story, the interesting story, not just random encounters, right?
Yes.
But you've got, but players still have choice.
Yeah.
Their
trials and tribulations influence.
Yeah. And I totally change up anything that the players change. I change. I will change.
That's awesome.
I'm not in love with any NPC, anything.
Right.
I hate that where games like keep snatching your victory away from you.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
That's horrible. You can get away with that once, right? The villain has an escape plan and he gets away, right? But if you keep doing that,
Right.
that's going to frustrate players. I would be so frustrated playing in a game like that. And there was a game I was running a little offside here, Horde of the Dragon Queen, where they kept doing that. They kept snatching the victory away from you. Like, oh, here's the dragon crown of this color. No, you don't get it because we take it away. I had it if they killed the person or whatever, they got it. Like there wasn't it snatching it away.
Yes.
Taking it away at the last moment. That's a railroad. That's not, if you already know the outcome,
Right.
Why are you playing?
That's it.
Why are you playing this game?
I think there's a big difference between snatching away a player's agency and sending them down a path. I always call it the amusement park method, right?
Yeah,
like you can get on whatever ride you want. Once you're on a ride, you're on that ride for a little ways.
Right.
But then when you get off, the park is yours.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And dungeons are very, you could say any dungeon is basically like a, railroad.
Exactly.
Because you have limited choices of what you can do. I try to give choices of going left or right, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Certain junctions of an adventure, but it's like, there are some adventures where it's literally just literal, like you can't go and you can't go off anywhere,
Right.
maybe except a side room or something. And so is that a railroad?
Right.
So if you're really, that about railroads, it's like, but it's still the way the players resolve those situations in that
Correct.
linear structure.
That's it.
Right?
As long as their success or failure is up to them.
Exactly.
Exactly. Money. Well, let's get back to Easy D6.
Yep.
Right? I think we've talked a little bit about your inspiration for it, but do you have any? There's the soft
Here's the soft cover.
Yeah.
I like this one particularly because it has me on it. I love me. I don't know what it is.
I love it. See, I think you've talked a little bit about your inspiration for it. Do you have anything else you want to add on that topic before we move on? Or maybe talk to us, because you touched on a little bit about what kind of also sets it apart, in your opinion, from other systems.
Yeah, I think what sets it apart is this. It boils down to this. The rules, the mechanics that run the game are almost invisible, right? Yes. I have players that will play with me at conventions that will not play in any other game because they feel dumb. Because if you're a novice and you sit down next to an expert D&D player, they've got strategy. They know everything they're going to do, spells. They've got strategies laid out. You don't know anything, right?
Right.
I mean, you may not, but you could feel dumb,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I never want a player to feel that way. So an expert player can sit down next to a new player and never feel any different than the expert player, because the way the game runs. So the rules are almost invisible, right? But the thing is, the rules that aren't invisible are the ones that favor the players. because players love themselves, right? They love making choices. They
Yeah.
love having options. They love looking badass.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got the crit rule, which if you roll a 6 and you confirm it with another 6, you do another wound. Because every weapon in my system only does 1 strike of damage, whether it's a dagger
Right.
or a ray gun, right?
Yep.
And when you roll a crit and you confirm with another 6, roll another die and confirm it, you can keep going as long as you roll a 6. You could kill anything theoretically, right? Or it could
Right.
kill you.
That
Yeah.
one perfect shot. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But you've got something that the enemy doesn't. You've got karma and hero die. Okay. Well, I'll explain in a second. But so there's the crit rule, which is totally player favored, and the players explode in excitement when someone starts rolling a good crit. And they boost it with karma, and they get another strike. Yeah, they get another strike. I mean, I've seen the whole table, just roaring with
Yeah.
excitement. That's one. The karma is one where you can spend karma to increase your rolls. That's a great resource for the players.
Mhm.
The hero die, which is another resource because a 1 is always a failure, but you can re-roll that, and you can't use karma on it. But you can re-roll that hero die and re-roll the number. So you might not get a 1 this time, right?
Yep.
Right.
So that's the difference between hero die. And then the spells, the spell casting. There's no set spells in this system. You pick a circle of sorcery, and then you can cast spells from that circle. You pitch your spell to the rabble rouser. They roll resistance to it, and then you decide what you want to roll. So that's it. I also like that magic feels different than combat, right? Because magic is kind of a mini game, where combat you just straight roll to hit and do your strikes. And in D&D it's not. Like, with the exception of like saving throws and stuff, like spells that like fire blast and all that, you're rolling exactly the same as a fighter. You're rolling you're rolling the D20, you're adding your bonus to it, and if you hit, you hit, right?
Yep.
This system
Then
is
you roll
totally
damage.
different. The conjurers totally damage stuff different than the melee fighters, or range fighters. So it makes magic feel different and more dangerous.
Yes.
So magic is fun in that respect.
Yeah, and I would just say there are a lot of folks in the ICRPG community too who are just like, we really don't want to move away from index card RPG, but we're gonna grab the magic system from Easy D6 and use that as our magic system. Like, it's so good.
Right. Going in for
That was the hardest
style
part.
magic.
That was the hardest part of the system. I think I've done all the player facing things, but anyways, yeah. So, and armor saves, right? So players get armor. Your enemies don't. I just give them more strikes if they're tougher instead of armor save, because that just slows the game down. But heroes get armor saves where you only have 3 strikes until you're dead, and that seems like, oh crap, I'm gonna die in like a minute. But with karma boosting your armor rolls and all this other stuff, the players always go first unless they're surprised. All that other stuff factors into this is three strikes is survivable. Plus you have your hero die. So you have those resources not to lose strikes if you want to spend them then.
So good.
Whereas other games you don't. You're hit or you're not. So like, a warrior in my game could last way longer than a D&D warrior, or they may not, right?
Right.
Because if you keep making that save, you're not taking strikes. Where a D&D warrior is going to die through attrition. They're eventually going to lose their hit points.
Drop.
Yeah. But
That's
a
awesome.
warrior could have this heroic, don't take a wound. I just keep making that armor save,
Right. Which cheers from around the table every time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and that's another excitement builder. So all those rules are player facing and fun because that players like themselves. They love themselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's definitely like a big switch in like the design build to focus on the players, kind of almost having the upper hand, which huge shift of focus. There's a lot of like the, I guess, older thoughts of like the, that it's player versus game master and that like they're opposing forces. And I mean, I know everybody here does not feel that same ilk. Like it's,
most game masters don't. Yeah. But there are a few. Yeah.
We're the player's biggest fan. Like the whole game is fan service. Like I want you guys to be awesome. And so it's like really cool to see that EZD6 is written from that point that you're already built up to be awesome because you're elevated right from the get-go. The rules are supporting you. And that's cool. That's a
And what
great-
sucks
great
about
game.
like kind of other games is like you could die in the first encounter. Even in
Yeah.
D&D, you could die easily in the first encounter, and then you got to either bring a new character or whatever, right?
Yes.
In my game, you're probably not going to die until at least midway through, right?
Right.
Yeah, because you have resources to mitigate dying, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like, well, how fun is that? Well, it's fun because now you've used up those resources. You don't have them when, I need that one last strike on the big bad,
Right.
and I can't roll it. I can't adjust it because I don't have any more karma or hero dice.
Right.
Yep.
So
Burn
I've
through it
seen
at
that
this
happen.
point.
And I love that because it kind of mimics, like traditional storytelling in movies, right? Heroes have immense luck, right? In movies,
Yes.
they have crazy luck,
Yes.
right? But their luck runs out at some point, right? All heroes' luck runs out at some point, and they usually get captured or they're beaten down, and maybe they get they recharge their luck a bit and they get back up and they're gonna fight, So the game really mimics that sense of movies and novels and stories about heroes facing impossible odds.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome.
Y-
That is
y-
awesome.
I have to say too, one of the other things that I love about it from a player standpoint are these loot choices in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because and the creativity I think it engenders from players. Because do you know what players can do with a flask of oil and a 10-foot pole? Like, oh my gosh, like, or a set of bellows. Like, it may not seem like it's a sort of innocuous item. It may not seem like the best item in the world, but in the right situation, those items are amazing. I
Yes.
love all those early loot choices for characters in Easy D6, and then the creativity that players can bring to the table when they use those in ways I think a lot of times as a DM you don't expect, and it ends up being so cool.
Yeah.
Right,
It ends up
totally.
being a huge highlight.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
And I usually roll for the players. Like I have them roll and I tell them what they get.
Yeah, right.
So they don't even choose.
Right.
They just end up with, a perfume bottle or whatever.
Right.
But let me tell you, they always think of something to do with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so good.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So good. Well, so I'm curious, Scotty. You've alluded to converting a lot of your previous adventures over. Can we expect some adventures down the road for Easy D6? And I also have to put in a personal plug for the Docks of Doom, which you ran for me. I think when you were playtesting it. It was so good. To this day, it remains one of my favorite adventures ever.
Oh, thank you. I love that adventure.
It's so good. And the fact that it's not out there to purchase, like, it kills my soul just a little bit.
Oh.
I love it. I love it. So I'm curious, can we expect adventures like that? Can we expect the Docks of Doom? Like, give us the insider scoop if you're willing.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
You know how I've talked about a world book where it's like you don't use 90% of the stuff.
Oh, yes.
So I started kind of doing a world book, and then it's changed to called quests instead of a world book. Yes. So it has a world essentially baked into it, right? Where the heroes are called the Brazen in my adventures.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're with awe by some people and feared and hated by others, kind of that Witcher dynamic. So I wanted a name like The Witcher, but not The Witcher.
Right.
So I thought Brazen is great because it's not saying they're heroes, right? It's not saying they're good or bad or whatever. But it's saying that they're the brazen are the ones that will go out and face things that no one else will.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love it.
These mad fools who go into rooms.
So it's going to be Easy D6 Quests. It's going to be the book.
Oh, it's
going to have a ton of content, all illustrated by Bova. So same artist.
Oh, so
fantastic. Good. Oh my God. I can't wait for you guys to see this artwork. Fantastic artwork. Amazing stuff. And these are hand-picked quests that I've run, including Docks of Doom.
Yes.
There you go, Alex.
Hand-picked quests
I'm gonna buy
from
it.
my own campaigns.
I want to buy it now.
One-shots that I've run that you can either like, you can play it as a campaign, or you can like roll and just pick one for the night.
Oh, that's
you
great.
can, pick one and like, I'm going to modify this a bit to fit my, I want to put this in my campaign game. I'm going to change these things up a little bit, the name or whatever this, but then you've got an adventure ready to go.
That's great.
All easy D6 based. It's got all the listings, I call them, for the monsters and NPCs and all that stuff. So you are just like, you could literally pick up the book and go, like, run immediately. Because a lot of adventures, you've got like block text, and you got to get through that. Okay, yeah, hold on, wait, I'm gonna read this. Okay.
Right.
If you're like picking up like most D&D modules, you're gonna have to either read it beforehand or like stop the group and like, oh, I got to read this whole huge paragraphs of text, right?
Well, and let me just interject on that note. So when I played with you at the last Mace, before the pandemic, played with you at Mace, you were running your game. Our table was wildly cheering. There were people who were jumping up, literally to their feet, including you. And it was like people were rolling dice and everybody, strangers. We were all in it together. Meanwhile, the table over, and I don't want to call anybody out, but the table over, there was a guy reading line by line. And if you looked around his table, like everybody looked defeated. Like he was literally just reading this text. As an adult, I have a very short attention span, I'm sad to say. If you read something to me, my eyes glaze over.
Oh, within the first few sentences, their eyes glaze over, right? You want to get in and get out.
Yes.
So you want to give them enough information to act on it and then get the hell out and let the player act.
Yes.
Don't read them like 2 paragraphs of setup text.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't read the script that tells you that the boulder is going to come rolling down if Indy doesn't swap the thing right. Show us the boulder.
Yes.
Swap the boulder.
Someone's supposed to say it out loud.
Flying, run.
Exactly.
Throw me the idol. I'll throw you the whip.
Yeah, right. That's the most important part.
Yeah.
So my book is not like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's got like little bits of stuff that you can immediately actionable.
Love it.
You know what I'm saying? You read a couple sentences, and this part of the adventure is actionable.
Love
there
it.
you go.
That's
perfect. You read the next one, actionable. So that's what I want it to be. I want it to be you can literally pick this book up and run dry without ever reading the book. And like I say, it's all set for Easy D6, so you don't even have to make up the statistics or the listings for the NPCs or monsters. They're already there. They're already in there.
Oh, it's excellent.
Yeah, so it's going to be fantastic.
I mean,
awesome.
we were talking about Hankering being a genius, but I mean, dude, it's so good. Scotty, I love it. Joe, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to ask, like, especially with this coming out, like, what about, like, would this be something like a new GM first time coming into Easy D6? Like, do you have tips for that, or is this like literally like they could just go and start running? I mean, I know it's easy to just run in, but like, what would you have for like the new folks?
Yeah. I'll probably have a little bit of extras, like tips for running and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're one criticism of my game has been that it's although it's easy, it's easier if you're an RPG player already, like you understand RPGs,
right?
Like it's easier. Now to play, that's not the case. Like I say, I have players that will not play with anyone else except me because they just tell me what they do and I tell them what to roll. Right. That's it. Nice. Or do you want to use karma or whatever? It's like, that's it. So but what criticism has been that, to be a rabble rouser, it's better if you have experience running other games. And I can see that. See that. Mm-hmm. But, I don't think it's that hard for a rabble rouser to get up to speed.
Right.
I don't think it would be.
It definitely seems like it just from reading through it. Like,
yeah.
explanations are wonderful and stuff.
Well, and that,
You might have the same tribulations, trials and tribulations as a normal DM,
Right.
running it for the first time. Okay, I could tweak this a little bit and it'll be better game, right? But but every game master does that. Every rebel rouser does that. He's like, okay, that was pretty cool, but let me tweak this next time. And you should always be growing and criticizing yourself and how can I get better at this?
Always something to learn,
Yeah.
and we always love to tinker.
well,
Oh, yeah.
and I would just say,
DM will.
I would just say too, I have to point this out. Like that rabble rouser section begins with just some fantastic advice.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
On how to approach the game, how to get into the game, how to run the game. Like it's outstanding. But what do you think, Scotty? You've been DMing forever.
Yes.
What do you think is your one big kind of piece of advice you would give to a new DM?
That you want to make the game fun. Like, don't worry about rules so much. You want to have a working knowledge of the rules, of course, but if you get something wrong, it's not going to break the game probably, right? Worry about making the game fun for the players, right? That's what they'll remember. That's mostly what they're going to remember about a game, whether it was fun or not.
Yeah.
Not whether, like you just said, the Docs of Doom, you still remember that game. You like that game. You're not gonna, you might remember that crit, but probably not. You're going to remember, oh, we did this and it was really cool because we did this and we did this, right? That's what you're going to remember. And that's what I want to center on for people to remember. And that's why I made EZC6 one reason, because the rules get out of the way of making those stories that people remember.
Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. And it definitely worked because I heard about the Docs of Dooms so much, especially like right when you came back, like the Discord was just buzzing. Oh my god, this game.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that the whole tale on your tables erupting and the poor table on the other side.
I get in trouble. I get in trouble.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
People are like, can you be quiet? So,
we cannot be quiet. Nay, sir, we are adventuring.
To me, every table should have that experience.
Yeah.
Like every table should be cheering and immersed and having fun and people pulling together. Love it.
Yeah. If you're not on the edge of your seat, why are you playing this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's like sweating.
if you're just sitting there and the game master's reading blocks of text to you.
Yeah.
That's not the game I want to play.
And I would just say, I'm not tearing anybody down if that's your style.
No.
Or if you don't know another way. But I think what we would all say here probably is we would invite you, like a call to invitation. We would invite you to try it a different way. And
some people see this game and they can't see what it is.
Right.
Because you kind of have to play it.
Yes.
Yeah,
once you see it played, or once you play it, I've seen so many people online have an epiphany, like, wow, this game was fantastic. The players were so excited. And because the game is designed that way. The game is designed to get your players excited.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it helps you tell a great story, because the game gets out of the way and focuses on the parts that make the game fun.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
Once again, that practical execution.
Right.
Instead of the theoretical discussion.
Just exactly. You're not going to break down the theoretical, this rule and that rule. Yeah.
Right? Well, hey, Scotty, I feel like we've kept you a bunch here today. I cannot thank you enough for taking time to talk with us about all you have going on. But before we let you go, I am curious, what other projects do you have going on, if any? And then 2, I know maybe you're prepping for Jeff Con coming up, if you want to talk about those things. And then I'll do a quick wrap up, and then I'll kick it to Joe for our outro, if that works for you.
Yeah. So I do have a couple of events coming up. One is the last Mace. It's called Jeff Con. Good friend of ours, Jeff, that runs Mace. He just passed this last year. So this is going to be the last one. They're actually going to continue Mace as another name and everything, but this is like the last official Mace.
Yeah, to honor him.
Yeah, to honor him, exactly. So Brandish is going to be there, which is cool. He was there last time, but we didn't get the game together. I had a game already, and he was too busy, and I had too many games scheduled, so I cut back a little bit this year so that we can have time together. But I am, in honor of the whole Runehammer thing, I'm running Temple of the Runehammer for my adventure.
but using Easy D6, right?
Yes,
Yes.
using Easy D6.
Yeah.
And then some after hours games I'm going to do. I'm working on a horror survival game called Worm Food. So
I love it.
Oh,
it's going to be nasty cool.
tasty.
Yep.
You know, and you're just a bunch of normal Joes. I'm still using an Easy D6, just a little bit modified, because this system can be used for, I'm sure at some point I'll have more of these like genre, either packs or a book, you know, about it. But I've run Easy D6 with the Terminator teddy bears, you know, modern games, survival horror, fantasy, superheroes, you know, space, Star Trek clone that I did. You know, all this, you can do it with all this different stuff. And I just change up a few rules here and there, do some different inclinations, because, you know, Alchemist isn't going to work for a necessarily for a modern game.
Awesome.
Right.
So I'll change a few things, and then, you know, it's great to run. But another thing I'm really looking forward to this year is, I hadn't gone last year because I went the year before, just before like COVID started, I went.
The before times.
Yeah, but Miranda, Wargamer Girl, I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Oh yeah.
She runs this retreat called Valhalla in the Fall, and it's
cool.
in the mountains of Utah, or it's outside Salt Lake City, and it's the largest cabin, privately owned wooden cabin in the United States. And she rents it out every year and does a week-long retreat of games.
Oh, that's sick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So last time I went, I flew out. So what I did was, I did kind of, my presentation was like, I did short little videos on a monitor that I would basically be the background music, and like introduce the scene like they'd be a character or whatever on the screen. But this year I'm driving out, so I'm going to have full terrain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. But the great thing is, last time I went, I ran D&D, but it was like, I had 3 games, like a mini campaign, 3 games back to back, which you never get to do that in real life, right? Like my home groups never do. You know, we meet like once a month or whatever. I never get to run the same game 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's because everybody remembers everything, right?
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah.
So I've got this cool mini campaign. It's kind of like a mashup of an apocalyptic fantasy world.
Oh, nice.
So
sick.
definitely inspired by Dark Sun, not Dark Sun, but definitely inspired by Dark Sun. The world is dying, and the players get transported to it. And there's this place called Sanctuary, which is just like the only place on the planet that you can survive. And the players like get thrown into this situation that they don't know, these 2 factions. Essentially, there are these sorceresses who have taken over, and they've so mutated and changed that they're worshipped as idols. Like they can't even speak. It's just that their minions know their thoughts, like know their desires.
Oh, awesome.
And so they're just worshipped, they're just carted around as idols. They can't even interact really.
That's
very
gnarly.
much. So the players get there, and they got to figure out, you know, okay, well, there's different factions. There's a group of freedom people who, because what happens is this place pulls resources from other worlds into a place called the dump. So like people, wood, food,
right,
you know, things get pulled and just dumped in this dump. And so all the people that live in this sanctuary loot from it, like get stuff from it. And so, it's just got some really cool far out ideas. And then, you know, the players, and then of course there's got to be an explosive ending where the whole thing is going to blow up, right?
Yeah, right.
Right.
It's like,
Always.
oh crap, you know, as the computer's counting down, you know, we got to get the hell out of here. So one of those explosive endings, it's going to be fantastic, and it's like full terrain, you know, it's like full.
Yes.
You know, and the plan is like kind of this Mars color red, and so it's like nothing is like gray, you know, like nothing is just like gray stone. It's all like weird.
Oh, that's
I have
great.
these white,
Right.
White trees, and that contrast
nice.
against the red.
Oh my God.
So
Really
just
make
it's
it feel alien
visually
and different.
amazing, and it's funny. Actually, I ran it for my daughter. It was like a day long marathon. Like she got a group of her friends, and they came over, and we just played from like noon to noon, or noon to midnight, or whatever.
That's great.
Played the whole campaign in one day. It was like the last big play test I had for EZD6. There were a couple things that actually came from it.
Nice.
From that play test. But yeah. So one last thing too I want to talk about before we go.
Yeah.
Is the magic.
Yes.
Magic is so hard to do for an RPG.
Yes.
Because here's what you do. Here's what happens. If you make it if you say a light RPG, right? They take all the cool spells out and you get the junk.
Right.
You get a few
the
junk
little ones.
spells, right? And that's light. That's not fun.
Right.
That's not fun. So how do you avoid that? And it has the same problems as every other system. You got spell slots, you got spell points, you run out of the resource, you got this and that. So it has that same problem. So I went through several iterations with the magic where there was one where you'd roll for your spells. Nobody wanted to play a conjurer because nobody wants to be just random spells.
Right.
They want to have choice in the matter. I get that.
A little bit of
And then
freedom.
I had this epiphany. I had this brilliant moment, which I don't call myself brilliant, but this was brilliant.
We'll call you brilliant.
It's brilliant.
The magic system is brilliant, okay? Because it in this easy mechanic, it fits all this different stuff. It fits player choice.
Yeah.
It fits danger. It
Yes.
fits sacrifice.
Yes.
It fits. It's magic is dangerous. Magic is unpredictable. It also takes out the I win spells, right?
Yeah.
Because the harder the better you want your spell to be, the harder it is to cast, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a fireball where I just use a spell slot and I wipe out 20 people, right?
Right.
It's like if I can hit up to 6 targets. If I want to hit 6 targets, that spell's going to be hard to cast.
Yeah.
If I want to hit 1 target, it's pretty easy to cast, right?
Yep.
It's going to be easy to cast. 1 or 2. But if I want to hit 6, it's going to be really hard to cast, right? And you probably won't cast it. So do you want to take that chance? Right? Do you want to take the chance of hitting 6, or do you want to hit a couple? So it takes the I win spells out. We slowed everything. We win. I fireballed the room. We win.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
You want
had
to fireball everything. Let's roll those dice. Let's play and find out what happens.
Yeah. I had an amazing moment. The game I was talking about, they were trying to escape this place, and the villain had set up like this thing where it was like to activate the ritual or whatever, 3 people had to be sacrificed, which could either be them themselves,
Right.
which kind of defeats the purpose, or you could just sacrifice an enemy, right?
Yep.
If you could drag them on the ritual circle, right? So this was an amazing battle. It came down to this archaeologist mage who they were with said, I'm going to do this, because they were trying to get all these free folk that they had in this town escape with them. And like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to do this. So they got 1 down. They got to do 2 more, right? So I think the brute like manages to drag somebody over and like slaughter him on the one of the idle minions, slaughter them on the circle. So we got 1 left, and it has to be all in the same round. All the sacrifices have to be in the same round. So you can't. It's not build it up. It's not like sacrifice over time.
Yeah,
it's
the
like
pressure.
1 round, you've got to do it, right?
Don't miss this up, or we got to start all over.
Right. So my wife's character's like on one of the circles. She's like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to sacrifice myself. We got to do this." She was like the friar character, and my daughter's like, "Hell no! You are not sacrificing yourself." So she's like, "All right, She was an illusionist. She's like, She had this great plan. I'm gonna do this spell and like draw this guy over, and whatever, make him go over to this thing and get on there, and then we'll kill him, when he gets there." And so it's all depending on the spell roll. This whole plan is depending on her spell roll, and she fails it miserably.
Oh no!
And she's like, wait, I got a hero die. I got a hero die. And the table is just blowing up. Like they're all, sweat is pouring off their brows. They're all like everyone is looking at that die. What is this die going to be? She picks up her hero die to roll it, throws it, and rolls a 1.
No.
So my wife ends up having to sacrifice herself, her character,
Oh man,
to save everyone. So, which both were great. Both were dramatic, right? Her character died this awesome heroic death.
Yes.
To save this whole entire town of people. My daughter had her chance in the sun, to do this crazy plan to get one of those minions over on the circle so they could kill him or have a chance to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, amazing.
Scotty, I was hanging on every word. I was like, yeah, like, oh my God, she's gonna make it.
Right?
You can literally hear the die hit the table as it rolled because they're all just, they're just this. The silence, what is it going to be? I mean, it's like you don't have those moments of spell casting with like games of spell slots and spell points.
Well, yeah. It's
and
like,
then
let me look this up in the book.
Nobody's hanging on. Are you spending 1 spell slot or 2?
Yeah.
Is it a level 2 spell slot or level 3? Nobody's bated breath waiting for that.
That's it.
But
and then when you spend all your spell slots, you can't do anything.
Well,
Right?
that's it.
I did it with my staff.
Well, and I would just say, I think it's a little bit of a fallacy, too. Like, players think they want that fireball that can wipe out 20 enemies. Mm-hmm. And it's cool the first time. But but it is a little bit of a letdown. Like, it actually isn't that cool. When you can just crush through 20 people at a shot. It's way better in terms of what you just described. Where you leave it up to the dice, it's up to chance, everybody's rallying in the moment, and then you see, like, does it happen or not? Just one of the reasons why this is so genius, and it is brilliant, Scotty. And I think
thank you.
Very brilliant.
And I think the other thing that people should be able to take away here is look how effusive Scotty is. Look at his DM energy. Look how great he brings story and game and immersion to life and draws his players in. And then now he has a rule set that helps facilitate that as well.
It totally does. The rule set is my philosophy. It totally helps facilitate having an awesome time at the table.
It's so great. Scotty.
Kind of like it was just making the game that you wanted to play.
That's it.
That's not bad, man, because I want to play it too. I love this.
So yeah, that's it. Well, hey, and I would say anybody, if you have a chance to game with Scotty, Jeff Kahn, or anywhere else that he's going to be, like literally, like run, do not walk, like buy, steal, like find a way to game with Scotty. He's just an amazing. He's an amazing human being. And Scotty,
thank you.
We've taken up a ton of your time. I know you're a busy guy. I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for sitting down and talking to us today. For folks who are out there, I would say, please support him on Patreon. Please support him at Questgivers. Please, please, please go by EasyD6. Like, join up on his social media. Check him out in all those places. He's just phenomenal. Scotty, thanks again.
Thank you.
Oh, so thanks. Very welcome. Thanks for having me on. Been great. But I love talking about myself.
This is wonderful. And I know folks in our community will love hearing from you because I don't know that they've been exposed to you that much, in terms of like talking about gaming and especially the new system. Mm-hmm. So thanks so much. Joe?
Yeah.
Take us out, man.
Man, so I guess, again, I also have to parrot the thanks. Like, because it's been an amazing conversation. And love hearing about all this stuff. But I guess, dear viewers, until next time, take my hero coin and always roll ultimate.